Today I'm playing outside. What kind of games do you like to play outside? I like to play bat and ball. Catch! And I love coming to the playground and going down the slide. Whee! And having a go on the climbing frame. There are small things to climb on like this. And big climbing walls like this one at the climbing centre. At this climbing centre, there are lots of things to help us climb safely. Holds to hold on to, ropes to help us stay safe. But do you know how a climbing wall works? Let's find out. How does it work?
Climbing wall.
There are 72 different climbing walls here. That's a lot of walls. There are very high walls. And walls you can climb underneath. A climbing wall is great because it means I can practice climbing safely. This is Tom, and Tom's a climbing instructor. It's his job to help me stay safe on the wall and make sure I'm wearing the right special safety equipment. We need special climbing shoes and a safety harness. But Tom's told me I don't need to wear a helmet because we're using this to help me climb. It's called an auto belay. It has a hard case and it's attached securely to the top of a climbing wall. And inside, there's a really, really long rope called webbing. I'm going to be using a belay that's all the way up there. Tom is going to attach the webbing to my harness. Did you hear that snap sound? That means I'm safely attached. Okay, shall we have a go? As I climb, the webbing winds into the case. Let's see what happens when I want to come down. The webbing comes out of the belay and lowers me down. I made it. To find out how a belay works, I think we should take a closer look. When we climb a climbing wall, the long webbing winds up inside the auto belay at the top. When we stop climbing, the webbing stops winding up. When we fall or want to come down the wall, the weight of our body pulls on the webbing, which makes the spool go round the opposite way, unwinding the webbing. Inside the belay are magnets and a rotor made of aluminium metal. Aluminium is not magnetic. So as the rotor turns, it fights against the magnetic field, making the spool slow down. So we come down the wall slowly and safely. That was really clever, wasn't it? Can you see all of these colourful holds dotted over the wall? They're called holds because you hold on to them when you're on the climbing wall, and they're hard and a little bit rough so you can get a good grip. The holds come in different colours because they help us to climb the wall in different ways. They're called routes. Can you see there's a white route, a red route, and a green route? So you can choose which route of holds you want to try and climb. Before I go up again, I'm going to put one of my special cameras on my head so you can see what I see. There we go. I've also put a special camera at the top of the wall. This time I'm going to try the red route, which means I'm looking for the red holds. Can you see the red holds? There they are. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's the first one. Here we go. I'm using my hand for the first one. And look, now I'm using my foot. I think that's high enough for now. Time to come down. That was amazing. I'm going to go up the climbing wall again, but this time I'm going to make up my own route using different colour holds. Let's climb. Look at all those different colour holds. They're different shapes too. Now let's see what happens when I want moment to get down. The magnetic field inside the belay is slowing down the aluminium rotor, so the webbing can bring me back safely to the floor. Made it! That was so much fun. What was your favourite part about finding out how a climbing wall works?
Do you remember the name for the equipment that helps me come safely up and down the wall? That's right, it's called an auto belay. Did you hear the sound the clip made as it attached onto my harness? And did you see the view from my head as I climbed the climbing wall? I went all the way to the top.
I've loved trying all the different routes on the climbing wall and learning about belays and holds. What else do they look like to you? They remind me of modelling clay. I love modelling clay. It's soft and stretchy and you can squish it into loads of different shapes. And the great thing about it is that you can use it over and over again. But do you know how modelling clay is made? Let's find out.
How is it made?
Modelling clay.
To find out how modelling clay is made, I've come here to a modelling clay factory. This factory makes 920 kilograms of modelling clay every single day. That's the same weight as a horse. Here they make modelling clay in lots of different colours. Today they're making bright red modelling clay. Let's see how. To make modelling clay we need these ingredients. Our main ingredient is starch. That's this white powder. Starch comes from plants, and when it's mixed with a lot of water, it will help our modelling clay become nice and thick.
Another plant material, cellulose, helps stick our modelling clay together, and salt, which acts as a preservative.
And a preservative will keep the modelling clay fresh and stop any bacteria from growing.
Vegetable oil helps the modelling clay from drying out and going hard.
And then to give the clay its colour, we use this red powder. It's called pigment. So, we've got our ingredients. Now we need to know how to make it. This is Billy, and it's his job to weigh out all of the ingredients to make the modelling clay.
But how do all these ingredients turn into squidgy modelling clay? We need to mix them up.
And for that, we need a giant mixing pot. Inside, there are two long metal bars, and these spin round and round. And there are some paddles attached to them, and these make sure that everything gets mixed properly. But it will take around 40 minutes to make the modelling clay, and that's quite a long time. So I think we should film this with one of my special cameras. I'm going to use my special camera to film a time lapse. That means we can film the mixing over a long time, but when we watch it back, it will happen quickly. Okay, all set? And we're ready for the ingredients.
First, the yellow vegetable oil goes in. Then the red pigment. Wow, can you see how the oil is changing colour? It's turned red. Next, the dry ingredients get added. Starch, salt, and then cellulose. Before the paddles mix everything together.
Oh, look at that! The clay mixture is getting really thick. Inside the mixture are lots of tiny starch granules. And when it's been mixed a lot, those starch granules start to break down. This means they can take on lots of water, so they swell up and become firmer, and that's why the clay is getting firmer. It's a lot more like squidgy modelling clay now, doesn't it? Now the modelling clay is thick, Billy's going to turn off the rotating paddles so we can take the clay out of the mixing pot. Billy's using his hands to squash the modelling clay into this box. What a fun job!
But But how does it stay squashy enough so you can keep playing with it over and over again? Well, it's all down to the vegetable oil and the water. When a solid like clay holds a liquid like vegetable oil or water, we call it moisture. And it's the moisture inside the clay that keeps it soft. When the modelling clay is soft, we say it's malleable. But it only stays that way if we keep it in a tub with the lid on, so the outside air can't get in. We call this airtight. This bit of modelling clay has been left out in the air overnight. Oh no, it started to go hard, and when I tried to mould it, it just cracks. It's dried out. When modelling clay is left out, air around it warms up the water inside the modelling clay and turns it into a gas. This is called evaporation. The gas leaves the modelling clay, which makes it dry. Our finished modelling clay is ready to be packaged. But first, it has to get squashed into the right shape. And that happens here, at the extruder. The clay goes in the top and comes out the bottom through this pipe. Let's see it in action. Wow, here it comes. It looks like a long sausage, doesn't it? But now it's got to get cut to the right size. You hear that noise? That is the paddle, spinning round. It acts like a blade, chopping the modelling clay to the right length. The clay has been wrapped in a thin layer of plastic, but it's quite loose, so it goes through the oven, and the heat shrinks the plastic tight to the clay, and this makes it airtight, so that none of the moisture can get out of the clay, so it stays soft and squishy. And there you go, some finished modelling clay. What shall we make? It's going to be an insect with a green head and blue spots. It's a colourful ladybird. I had so much fun finding out how modelling clay is made. What was your favourite part? Do you remember what we call a tub when the lid is fastened on top? That's right, it's airtight. Do you remember the sound the paddle made as it cut the modelling clay? Did you see on my special time-lapse camera when the modelling clay went from gloopy to thick? So the next time you play with modelling clay, you'll know how it was made. And if you visit a climbing wall, you'll know how the belay works to help us get up and down safely. Right, I think it's time for me to have another go. I'll see you next time. Hello, I'm Maddie, and I've just been doing some shopping. This bag is really easy for me to lift, but this one, it's too heavy. There are lots of heavy things that we can't lift, like a shopping trolley full of food, a motorbike, or a big pile of bricks. So, how can we lift heavy items up? That's right, by using a forklift truck. Forklift trucks are used to lift really bulky, heavy things. But do you know how a forklift truck works? Let's find out. How does it work?
Forklift truck.
To find out how a forklift truck works, I've come here to a warehouse.
A warehouse is where lots and lots of items are stored. And Nick is a forklift truck driver here. You should never go close or play near a forklift truck without a grown-up, but I've got special permission to show you how they work. And I'm wearing a special high-visibility jacket to make sure Nick can see me. This part is called the forks, and it looks a little bit like a fork that you eat with. And just like a fork, it's the part that scoops and lifts things up. These are called pallets, and they're made of planks of wood. Pallets are very strong, which means heavy things can be put on top of them, and underneath they have 2 spaces for the forklift truck's forks to slide into. The forks are attached to the carriage, and this tall part here is called the mast. can you see that chain? It looks like a huge bike chain, doesn't it? Well, that's called the mast chain, and it lifts the forks and the carriage up and down. But how does a forklift this size lift really heavy things all the way up there without tipping over? Let's find out. Here, I've got a plank of wood and some different size pots of paint. What do you think will happen if I put one small pot of paint on one side and a big, heavy pot of paint on the other? Should we find out? Ooh, that's right. The big pot of paint slides off. But look what happens when we put a small pot of paint on each side. It doesn't tip over. That's because the pot of paint on this side weighs the same as the pot of paint on that side. It's called counterbalance. And a forklift truck also has counterbalance, a heavy weight inside at the back, so it can pick things up at the front and not tip forwards. But to find out how it lifts them really high in the air, I think we need to take a closer look. First, the driver moves the forklift forward, so the forks slide into the pallet. Next, the driver pulls a lever. This pushes oil into the bottom of a hollow tube, called a hydraulic cylinder. Inside the hydraulic cylinder is a piston. The oil being pushed into the cylinder pushes the piston up. As the piston pushes up, it lifts the mast, and the mast chain starts to pull the carriage and the forks up. The forklift truck moves into position in front of a shelf. When the forks are at the right height, it drops slightly. The back wheels turn, and the forklift truck reverses, leaving the pallet on the shelf. The driver pushes a lever, which lets the oil out of the hydraulic cylinder. The piston moves back down, lowering the mast, the carriage, and the forks. And off it goes, ready to lift another pallet. Wow, that was really interesting. Shall we take a look for ourselves? I've got some of my special cameras here to attach to the forklift so we can see what happens when it moves a heavy pallet onto one of the top shelves. We're ready to go. I've connected the special cameras to this screen so I can watch what's happening. Okay, Nick, we're ready to go. Look, Nick's putting the forks into the two holes in the pallet. That's so it can lift the heavy things up really easily. And now he's pulling the lever, which lets oil into the pistons, so the mast and carriage can take the pallet up. Whoa. The forklift is moving the pallet so high. And it's not falling over because of the counterbalance at the back of the forklift truck. Nick then drives the forklift forward and pushes the lever to lower the pallet onto the shelf safely. Can you hear that sound? That beeping tells us that the forklift is reversing. Nick finishes by pushing the lever one last time, which brings the carriage all the way to the floor. So he can drive off. How amazing was that? I think forklift trucks are brilliant. What was your favourite part about finding out how they work? Can you remember the part of the forklift truck the forks are attached to? That's right, it's the carriage. Did you hear the sound the forklift truck made when it reversed? And did you see the way the forklift truck lifted the pallet really high on my special camera? Forklifts are great for lifting really heavy things, like boxes of fruit. Here, I've got a box of apples. What's your favourite fruit? I love grapes, and I love these too, raisins. But did you know that raisins are just grapes that have been dried? There are lots of different types of dried fruit, like bananas, apricots, and even pineapples. But do you know how dried fruit is made? Let's find out. How is it made?
Dried fruit.
Dried fruit is made here, on a farm. This is an apple orchard. And look, you can see the apples starting to grow. Today, they're turning apples that have already been picked into these dried apple slices. But first, they need to be taken from the field in these big apple bins to the factory. This is a bin tipper, and it tips the apples into this giant washing machine. To clean the apples, they take a ride on this very special conveyor belt. And then they get dropped off into a big bath of water. The apples bob along the water and come to here. The apple ladder, which carries the apples up to the next stage. This is the apple orientation machine. Can you see the apples fall into a little hole? And under each hole is a wheel that spins around and it turns the apple until the stalk is facing up. How brilliant is that? Underneath the stalk is a part of the apple called the core. And to make dried apple slices, the orientation machine lifts the apples off the little holes to remove the core. Whoa, look! The machine is pushing the core out of the apple, leaving a big hole in the middle. After the metal rods have made a hole in the middle of the apple, they slide onto another rod, ready for them to be sliced into two parts. Before they come out the end of the machine, down some slides and booms. It's like a water park for apples. There they go, down the slide. The apples slide down onto this table. Can you see that it's jiggling around? We say that it's vibrating. And as the table vibrates, the apples jump up and down, and it shakes any of the pips off. Can you jiggle like an apple? That is the sound of jets of air blasting water off the apple half. Sounds a bit like a vacuum cleaner. Now the apples need to be sliced. This is a slicing machine, and inside there are 8 really sharp blades that cut the apples into thin slices like this. This machine cuts 8,000 apple slices a minute. So to see how it works, I'm going to use one of my special cameras. This is my special slow motion camera. It lets us film things that happen really quickly, but watch them back slower. Look, the drum is spinning the apple pieces around really quickly. And can you see those wavy bits of metal? They're the blades that chop the apple pieces into slices. But where have they all gone? Oh, there they are. Look at all those apple slices. Our apples are the right size and shape now, aren't they? But they're still moist and a little bit bendy. Apples are really juicy because they've got lots of water inside them. If I squeeze this apple slice, can you see all of that juicy water coming out? But to make apple slices, we want them to be dry and crispy, so we have to take the water out. It's called dehydration. And it happens inside this machine. It's called a dehydrator. Look how big it is. It's 14 meters long. Inside, the dehydrator machine blows hot air onto the apple slices for 12 hours. Off they go. The machine blows away all the water. It's a bit like a really big hairdryer. When the apples come out, they look a little bit different. They're smaller and shriveled up. That's because the water that was inside
slices are dry and crispy. Dried apple slices are then put onto another conveyor belt and are carried up to the packing machine, which drops the right amount of apple slices into each packet before they're sealed. Quite a bee, isn't it? And here we have a finished packet of dried apples, all ready to eat.
I loved seeing how dried fruit is made.
What was your favourite part? Do you remember the name of the machine that made sure the apples were the right way up? That's right, it's called the orientation machine. Do you remember the sound the air jets made when they dried off the apples? And did you see the apples getting chopped into slices on a special slow motion camera? So the next time you try dried fruit, like dried apple, you'll know how it was made. And when you see a forklift truck, you'll know how it lifts really heavy things really high up. I'll see you next time.